Sayyid Nursi was the most influential scholar, intellectual, and activist in the history of modern Turkey. Sayyid Nursi was born in the year 1877 into a religious Kurdish family in the Ottoman Empire. After completing his Islamic education, Sayyid Nursi became an influential Islamic leader and was appointed as an advisor to Tahir Pasha, who was the Ottoman governor of the Bitlis province of eastern Anatolia. During this period, Sayyid Nursi witnessed the rise of Western powers such as Britain and Russia, who were constantly a threat to the Ottoman Empire. Therefore, he began advising the Ottoman government to reform and keep up with the West. Sayyid Nursi called on the Ottomans to invest in science, technology, and education in order to prevent Muslims from being dominated by Western powers. Sayyid Nursi called for an education system where both religious and modern education was taught. Sayyid Nursi eventually joined the Ottoman Parliament, and in 1908, Sayyid Nursi began to criticize the despotism of Sultan Abdul Hamid II, and he called for the formation of a constitutional Ottoman government. However, despite calls for reform, the Ottomans continued to be arrogant and Western powers continued to dominate the world. During this period, Sayyid Nursi published many books and articles calling for reform and Islamic unity in the face of Western colonialism. In 1911, Sayyid Nursi traveled to Damascus and delivered a famous sermon in the Umayyad Mosque, where he called on Muslims of all races to unite and warned them not to be fooled by European ideas of nationalism. During the First World War, the Ottoman army was lacking in manpower. Therefore, in 1914, Sayyid Nursi mobilized his religious students and formed his own volunteer militia in order to defend the Ottoman Empire against the Russian invasion of eastern Anatolia. In 1915, Sayyid Nursi was taken captive by the Russians and was held as a prisoner of war in Siberia, where he stayed for 2 years. In the year 1917, Sayyid Nursi managed to escape from prison. He traveled through many countries such as Poland, Germany, and Bulgaria, before returning to Istanbul in 1918, where he received a hero's welcome. However, after returning to the Ottoman Empire, Sayyid Nursi realized that it was on the verge of collapse. In 1918, British and French forces occupied Istanbul. Therefore, Sayyid Nursi defected from the weak Ottoman government who had allowed the British to occupy Istanbul, and he joined forces with resistance groups who were fighting the Christian invaders. One of these groups was the popular Turkish national movement, led by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. After the British, French, and Greek forces were finally defeated in 1922, the Ottoman Caliphate was officially abolished and replaced with the Republic of Turkey, led by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Said Nursi initially joined the new Turkish government, but he later began speaking out against Ataturk and his anti-religious worldview. After the creation of the Turkish Republic, Said Nursi was offered many prestigious government positions, but he declined all of them because he rejected Ataturk's blind imitation of the West and anti-Islamic laws such as the banning of the call to prayer. After defecting from the government of Ataturk, Said Nursi began speaking out against the government and called for the restoration of Islamic values and principles in Turkish society. Said Nursi established a religious revival movement that offered an alternative to Ataturk's form of modernization. Said Nursi's movement accepted Western science and technology but rejected secularism and anti-religious laws. From the very beginning of the foundation of the Turkish Republic, Nursi was regarded as a threat to the secular worldview promoted by the state. Therefore, he was persecuted, exiled, imprisoned, and his writings were censored. In the year 1925, after he was suspected of inciting anti-government rebellions in eastern Turkey, Said Nursi was exiled to a remote village in northwestern Turkey. During the reign of Ataturk, his writings were banned and he was constantly harassed by Turkish authorities. Although his writings were banned by the Turkish regime, Said Nursi maintained his reputation as a religious leader. He began to attract a group of religious followers who copied his writings by hand and distributed them. The copies of his writings, which were illegally written in Arabic script, were distributed secretly all over the country. In his writings, Said Nursi warned the people of the dangers of materialism, atheism, and moral decadence. During his 25 years of exile, Said Nursi also managed to write a 14-volume work known as Risale-i Nur, which contains thousands of pages of writings about the moral decay of Turkish society, materialism, and reflections of various verses of the Holy Quran. Because he was continuously harassed by Turkish authorities, Said Nursi and his group of followers moved from village to village in order to avoid being detected by government agents. When religious rights and freedoms in Turkey expanded in the year 1950 after the creation of the multi-party system, Said Nursi returned to Istanbul, where he was able to freely publish his works in printing houses. Said Nursi died on 23 March 1960 at the age of 82. He was buried by his loyal followers in Urfa. However, 2 months later, after the military coup of May 27, 1960, the new Turkish government opened his grave and reburied his body in a secret, unknown location. This is because the government feared that his grave would become a rallying point for Islamic revivalists.